Hi everyone and good afternoon. It's great to see our community participating every week and leaving comments and suggestions like webinars they'd like to see. So on behalf of our users' request, today we'll show you some tips and tricks in Kits you'll need to know to closing those sales quickly. So welcome to your Kits Webinar Wednesday. So today we'll be showing you how to create your own personal and unique standard typicals for quick use. Now this is actually a really good webinar to participate in because again we've been requested to do something similar to this by a lot of our users out there. And basically what this is going to do is show you how you can create your standard typicals other than the project galleries that you're already authorized to go through. This way you can actually create typicals that'll help you quickly ID in front of your client, okay? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to go through how to create your own personal unique standard typicals, and Julia will take you through today's agenda. Julia?
Awesome. So we're going to be going over the following. First, we're going to be creating those standard typicals, either manually creating a typical or using one from our galleries. We're also going to be showing you how to name your standard typicals, either for quick project details or to find those projects quickly with your search results. And lastly, we're going to be showing you how to organize your typicals in your project gallery, and this is the best way of doing it by creating those folders. So Franklin will now continue with the webinar.
All right, great. Thanks again, Julia. So what we'll first have to do is we'll have to create those standard typicals in Kits. Now, before I do that, we're going to go ahead and open up Kits. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a quick folder that I created regarding any kind of standard typicals that I may use in front of my client. So the reason why this is actually important for you guys to go and create your own personal standard typical set is because this can really consist of any kind of type of project you work on. It doesn't have to be industry related. It doesn't have to be specific to any particular function or user. This is basically sample sets that you can use when you're in front of your client based on the manufacturers that you already use. So this is like a blended folder that contains a variety of different type of typicals as well as different manufacturers. So here you can see that I have 6 typicals here, all with the same similar naming convention. And the reason why I do that is so that when I use my quick search function, I can quickly find these typicals and kind of sort them out from the rest of the projects that I've already pre-created. So again, that's why there's an importance to creating a naming convention that is unique to these standard typicals. All right, again, as you can see here with my typical set, you can see I have a little bit of project details involved, and the reason why there's not a whole lot of details in the project name is because you only have a certain amount of characters to use, so you want to make sure that your project details are pretty straightforward and you know exactly what that typical is about without having to go into the typical. So let's look at the first one. You can see here I've created a standard private office. Now it says second level, and what I mean by second level, and this is something that I normally use whenever I work on private office sets for my clients, is I kind of rank them between level 1, level 2, and level 3. And basically a first level private office would be your very standard set, and that could be a manager that's running the bullpen, or whatever it is there. Here I have a second level, which would be sort of like your mid-level manager that may, let's say, maybe client-facing, may have some upgraded finishes. So that's the reason why I use first, second, and third levels. And then if we look at, let's see, typical 6, TYP.6, you can see I have some K-12 projects here, and that's for particular classroom sets that are based on project learning. So here I have a project learning classroom set that can accommodate anywhere between 15 to 20 people. So it's important to figure out what are the finer details that you need to include in that naming convention, and to make sure that you list them so that it's clear and it's understood what that project is all about. All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to create these unique typical sets so that you can actually use them whenever you're working on your projects. All right, so first thing I want to do is I'm just going to go out of here and I'm going to go ahead and create a project. So there are various ways you can actually create these projects. So the first obvious one is by creating it manually in Kits by accessing the manufacturer you want to use and then pulling in product and then making sure that it complies to whatever your standard is. Okay. Now, the great thing about this is what you can do is you can already preset any specific finishes. So this could be something that you do, as a standard typical that you may commonly use for a first-level manager. It could have, common characteristics in terms of swatches and in terms of price point. So again, it's important to understand that when you create these projects, to find out what kind of details you want to include, whether that's the type of project that it is, the cost of that project, or whatever is important to you, and then making sure that you build the layout based on those requirements. Okay. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to create a project. We can also pull a project from a pre-existing gallery that's already there. So you can quickly use one of those instead of having to go to that gallery all the time. You can always go to your project set, or what you can do is, and I won't be showing this example today, but if you work with a design team and you use one of the authoring programs that Kit speaks to, like Cap Designer by 2020 or Project Matrix, then your design team can create these typicals for you, and then you can import them into Kit so that you can also access them as part of your standard typical. So there's various ways of creating these typicals, and I'm going to show you two ways today. I'm going to show you how to create one manually, and then how to pull a few from pre-existing galleries that are already there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put them all together and organize them so that it sits in your folder the way you want it. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a project. And if you want to follow along and you have access to the same manufacturers as I do, then please go ahead and follow along. If not, you can go ahead and use your own favorite manufacturer or any of the planning galleries that you have access to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a first-level private office. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to access my Add Item menu, and then I'm just going to quickly go into National, which I'll be using for today's example. I'm going to go into my case goods, and I'm just going to go into case goods 1. And now I'm going to go ahead and pick Airwood Veneer. And at this point, what I just want to do is I want to bring in a sample desk set here that I can use. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the first category. It's going to be an L unit. It's going to have a full pedestal, and we're going to say it's wood top, and it's going to have a right orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the very first model I have here. So I'm going to double tap on the submenu, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly add a swatch to it. And the reason why you want to add swatches to these typical sets is so that when you actually show your client what this project looks like or what this layout looks like, they kind of understand basically what kind of options are available when they actually see colors on the actual models. Instead of seeing it as a grayscale image, as you can see right now in the image in my submenu, it's always best to apply some kind of finish, because you can always go ahead and change those finishes as you go along. All right. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and specify this desk here. And I'm just going to go ahead and quickly pick any of the options. You guys are the designers today on your side, so go ahead and pick whatever colors you want to use. So I'm going to go with truffle. And then before I add that to my scene, what I want to do is I want to configure price for just this particular model right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on Configure Price. And what I want to do here is, if there's a concern for pricing, for a client to see pre-configured pricing, then you might want to make changes the way you want to make changes. I know I work with a lot of salespeople that don't like to show clients manufacturers list pricing because there is some kind of upcharge or profit margin you want to include in your project. So what you can do here as a first step for pricing is you can go ahead and tap on Pricing Method, tap on List Plus, and now you can enter any type of upcharge or profit margin you want to include for this particular set. Okay, so let's say we want to make sure that there's at least 15% here. So I'm going to go ahead and add 15, and then I'm going to go ahead and tap on the keyboard to close that. So now you can see that my catalog list price is now adjusted to the new list price, which includes my 15% upcharge. As far as discount method goes, I'm not going to do a thing, because all I want to do is make sure that I show the newly adjusted list price to my client so they understand that this is the cost for this typical set. All right? So I'm just going to tap on Apply. And now what I want to do is drag that unit onto my floor grid. And now we're going to add some chairs. So I'm going to go to Add Item. Just going to tap on Reset All. And now I'm just going to plug in N59AA and tap on Search. Again, these are typical sets that you can create however you want to create them. Again, I'm being manufacturer specific here by using national, but we all know that a lot of the projects that you work are based on a budget, which you may have to do some type of blended, let's say a blended project based on various manufacturers. So you can create any kind of typical set you need to create as your standard so that you can close your sales that much faster. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use this national chair. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead, and since this is a first level manager set, I don't want to use any high grade upholsteries that are available to me, so I'm going to only use grade ones. And we're going to go pick one from the gray sets here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Stardust Links. Okay. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I have the same finish as I selected for my desk, which was truffle. I'm going to tap on Done, and now we're going to configure price to also include that 15% upcharge, which I've already included for the desk. Okay. So now I'm going to drag this chair in here, and I'm going to go ahead and now fix my layout. And there we go. As you can see, this is by all means bare minimum private office desking that I can normally use as basically a standard typical set for my client. No need to create any kind of renderings here at this point because what you want to do is just create your typical set. Now, again, if you want to present it in some different way and you want to send quick images based on the color arrangement that you have selected initially, then of course you can create those renderings. But what I would do is I would just leave the renderings to when the actual project is selected. Okay, so here again, we have our very standard, typical first level manager desk set. And if I go to my list view, I can see what the total list price. And again, remember, this is the price based on the 15% upcharge that we've included. So you can see here we have a project that is just over $5,000. So if it's important that you document the pricing when you actually create the project name, you can certainly do so. All right. So right about now, I just want to save this project. So we're going to assign a new name. And for now, I'm just going to call it S for standard TYP typical .1. Remember, this is where you need to be very unique with the naming convention so that it includes some project details of all your projects. And if I were to search STYP in my search in my project gallery search function, it's going to bring up all the projects that have been named STYP, which is very unique to all the projects that are actually saved on my iPad, so that I kind of remove all the clutter of everything else. Right? So I'm going to keep that for now. I'm not going to add any kind of details because I can certainly add that at the end. I just want to make sure I have my typical created. All right? So let's go ahead and save that. So I'm going to go into my planning typicals. I'm just going to go into West Elm here. We're going to view by collection. I'm going to look at some mid-century. I want to add another private office. And what I'm going to use here is mid-PO4. And now I'm going to drag it into my scene. Okay. So you can see here that, again, there weren't many options for me to select from as this is a typical set. So what I want to do is I just want to quickly rotate this. And the great thing is this project is already specified in terms of swatches that are available. I can certainly go in and make any kind of changes I want. But again, all I want to do is create the project so that when I'm in front of my client, I can go through those changes with them, okay, based on the project here. You may want to go into your list view and possibly configure your prices, again, to include that 15% upcharge or whatever it is that you normally add to your project. So here, Again, I'm just going to add list plus, and that's 15%. And if you need to know how to do a multi-item or bulk pricing, you can visit our Knowledge Center, as we do have that recorded webinar up for you to review. Okay. As you can see here, what I've done is I selected all my models. I've included the 15% upcharge to all the items that are listed in this project. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. Now this is going to be called STYP.2. Okay. I'm going to just quickly save that to my project folder. There we go. So again, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have quite a few typicals already that you can include and organize into a folder. All right. So let's go on and let's add another project. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to utilize the planning typicals that are available to me. This time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a HON typical. And it's a meeting set that I want to create. It's going to be preside. This one is going to be somewhat of a formal type of meeting space. So again, this is going to be a higher tier, if you want to call it third level in my terms, furniture set. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring that in. And then I want to go ahead and quickly specify the items. So here we're going to select laminate. It's going to be harvest. Replace all, tap on done. And now we're going to quickly add some chairs. And you can see in this example, there's not, we don't have chairs circling all around the actual table. We can certainly add that. Or again, what I'm going to include is the fact that this table can host roughly about 6 to 8 people. So as long as you indicate that, it's understood in my details that this meeting space can host anywhere from 6 to 8 people. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do that after. So let's go ahead and pick some options for this chair. And what we're going to do is we'll select black. And this time, because it's a formal meeting space, I want to make sure that I'm going to upgrade my upholstery set here. So I'm going to go ahead and use some grade 7 upholsteries. And, again, the idea here is that you make sure that you add some kind of color or keep it neutral, however you want to do it. So again, I'm going to go ahead and use a gray seat. And then we're just going to scroll through here and select one of the finishes that we want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and select iron. I'm going to tap on next. And then we can actually close that because you can see here that they've now been applied with all the finishes I want. And now I'm going to go to my list view. And I'm going to do bulk pricing to include my list plus. So now you can see the common language that I'm using here and the consistency in how I'm actually creating all these typicals. So one, they're based on a particular function. 2, they have some kind of swatch applied to it. 3, I've included the 50% upcharge I include on all my projects. So let's go ahead and save that as stip.3. And now we can go on to the next project. So remember what I said, this doesn't have to be industry specific. This just needs to be based on any kind of project that you work on. So whether it's for officing or whether it's for some particular project, like let's say K-12, you can include any type of project to this folder set because these are your own personal standard set. All right. So here we're going to tap on the plus sign, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly access, again, my planning gallery typicals. And you remember what I mentioned, you can actually create these yourself. You can use the ones that are already existing that you commonly use already, or you can go ahead and work with your design team so that they can actually create them in CAP 20 or Project Matrix or CET or whatever program that they use, so that you can import them into kits for your use in Kits Mobile. So this is going to be a classroom style, And I'm going to quickly bring this into the space. Now you can see here that I have some KOE elements added, like these people. I don't necessarily want to include them for my standard sets like this one. So what I'm going to make sure I do is I'm going to make sure that I remove some of these people here. So let's go ahead and finish the specification for the space. And that's good. And let's also select some of these chairs here. There we go. So you can see how I quickly edited that so that it has some of the finishes that I wanted to see. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list view. I need to remove those KOE elements that are in my scene. So I'm going to go into my all catalogs. I'm going to select my KOE catalog. And I need to make sure that this is ungrouped. And now I'm going to go ahead isolate those. Actually, give me 1 second here. There we go. Just need to make sure that was deselected. Let's go back to list view. Let's go back to the KOE catalog. And now I can go ahead and do a select all function so that I can remove these elements from the scene. Okay. All right. So it's now, I have now removed those people. I'm pretty satisfied with this. Again, go back to my list view. And let's go to all catalogs, select all the catalogs, and now I can add that 50% upcharge that I normally add. All right, so that's been added. And now let's go ahead and save this project. All right, great. So let's save it. And there we go. So now you can see I have 4 projects that I've created that I can include in my folder. This can contain as many projects as you want. I'm just showing you how to create the typical set and now what to do with them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and hold the first project so that I can go ahead and select the projects that I need to include into my folder. All right, so here's my folder. And then for the sake of today's demo, what we're going to call it is Webinar Wednesday Standard TYPs, okay? Or you can actually name typicals, however you want to do it. So there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. So there's my new project based on the actual folder, or based on the standards that I've created. Now this is where you have to understand and recognize what you need to include for this project. So again, the naming convention needs to be unique, where I have STYP.1. I'm going to keep that, but what I want to do is I want to extend some project details beside it so that I know exactly what's involved in this project without having to go into the project. So let's go ahead and tap on the project name. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add PO, and I'm just going to add first level. Okay. Again, this is based on my own system, so I understand what a first level is. Again, so I can always refer to those typicals. Now you'll notice that the typicals are always saved basically date timestamp as it is below, and it'll organize it, organize your projects based on when they were last saved. So you may not have them appear in order, but that's okay because the idea is that they're all within the same folder and you can actually select them based on whatever typical set that you see there. Okay. So we're going to go in order. I'm just going to use S typical 2. Again, this is going to be private office. And for me, this would be second level. Okay. Now we're going to go to our meeting space. And here I'm just going to put MEET. As I'm trying to save as much space as possible in this particular area, as I have a limitation to the characters I can add. And now what I want to do is make sure that I understand that this is formal. And I'm going to say roughly between 6 to 8 people. Okay, so again, you can see I have quick project details indicating some details that I may need. Here for first level, if I want to include additional details, I know this is roughly around a $5,000 mark. So what I'm going to do here is I can add 5K. So then again, I know without having to go into the project that this is a first level manager set that's roughly about $5,000. Okay, so these are details that are going to matter to you because these are your own personal set. And lastly, what we're going to do is K-12. And don't worry about it being case sensitive, as KITS doesn't recognize case sensitive phrases. So you can just name it any way you want. I just like to use all capitals. That's probably the designer in me. So don't worry, you can do it any way you want. And this is going to be classroom. And now what we're going to say is it can accommodate roughly to 25 to 30 people. Okay, so I'm pretty much done my typical set. And you can now see here that I now have this new project folder that contains all the different standard typicals, some that I've created, some that I've borrowed from the galleries that I use, but it basically contains all the elements that I need to close my sales quickly. So you can decide what you want to include in this so that you can actually prepare your catalog or your folder and fill it in with all the standard typicals that you want to use. Now, the important thing is the reason why we've named it with a naming convention that is unique to just these standard typicals is that if you're like me and you create many projects a day, your project folders are going to get pushed and pushed and pushed all the way down to the bottom based on the date timestamp of when that folder was last created. All right, so don't worry about having to find that folder. All you need to do is tap on the search box. And now you just need to find or search for those typicals that were created. Here, I've named them STYP. I'm going to add a period to there because that's unique to that actual name. I'm going to tap on search, and you can see how quickly it's now found those typical sets. So now you can see I've removed all the other clutter of everything else, and I can just go through all the typicals that are in this folder. Right? Now, if you want to use one of these typicals, the number one thing you got to understand and remember is you need to create a copy, because if you actually tap into one of these projects, you're going to save over that actual project that you've created. So if it's a private office first level you want to use, I'm going to tap and hold that project until it enlarges. I'm going to let go, and now I'm going to tap on the duplicate function. So now I have my copy. So here we can go into the project. Now I can name it whatever it is. XYZ company, and this is private office, and we can say it's for a bank. Okay, whatever you want to name, however you want to name it, and this was done on August 3rd, 16. And there you go. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. I can go ahead and create that wonderful rendering. But that's basically how you can create your own unique standard typical set so that you can refer to instead of having to rely on some of the galleries that we've already created for you. So again, utilize all the different resources you have. You can create them yourselves. You can access those typicals from the pre-created galleries that we've created for you, or you can actually get your design team to work on these standard typicals for you. And then if need be, you can share them with your sales team. So it's a great way of creating these typicals. You don't have to be the only one to do it. You can actually commission different work from all the different salespeople that work with you, and then just crowdsource it and share those sources that you have. All right? And that's it, everyone. We've now shown you how to personalize your kits by creating your own unique standard typicals. Now, really knowing these tips and tricks will get you closer to becoming a supercharged power user. So please figure out how you want to use kits, personalize it based on your own daily workflow, and you'll see how quickly you'll become a power user.